It's not that you could hear anything, but I was like really close to Prabhupada's face. And I was looking at him, and I just noticed that his lips moved. And when his lips moved, it appeared as though Prabhupada was pronouncing Hare Krishna. And at that moment, his jaw dropped. And at that very second, when he said Hare Krishna and his lips opened, I saw the color of Prabhupada's body change. And when I saw that happen, I thought, now my spiritual master has left his body. And everyone else in the room, they knew that that was the moment also. They started weeping like they'd lost their life because Prabhupada was our life. I was watching Pishima, and she was weeping. She just bowed down to Prabhupada's feet, and she started taking the dust from Prabhupada's feet, and she started smearing the dust on her head and smearing the dust on her eyes. Then I decided that I should do as Pishima had done, so then I went and I took the dust from Prabhupada's feet and I rubbed on my head and my eyes. Then there was a request that the devotees would step outside so that they could prepare Prabhupada. And the majority of the devotees left. I stayed behind. And Upendra, very masterfully, he just sort of took control of the situation, and he brought fresh clothes, and he very, very quickly dressed Prabhupada. And I remember he took a cloth and he tied it around Prabhupada's head so that Prabhupada's mouth would remain closed. And they put Prabhupada on his palanquin. And then we were waiting for the Gaudiya Mat devotees to come over and give some instruction on what to do. They came and they offered a garland to Prabhupada. Tamal Krishna Maharaj and Bhavananda Maharaj, they consulted with the Gaudiya Mat devotees. And then it was decided to take Prabhupada for last darshan of the deities, and then make parikrama of the temple, and then place Prabhupada on his Vyasasana for the Guru Puja. So I remember when they carried Prabhupada into the temple room, one of our god brothers, his name was Puri Das, he was the pujari for Gornitai. And either it was at the beginning of the arti or at the end of the arti, I'm not really sure. The last arti, it was the Shayan arti. Puri was on the altar with the conch shell in his hand. I remember Puri turned and he saw Prabhupada on the palanquin, and Puri fainted right on the spot in front of Gornitai. And they put the palanquin right up on Prabhupada's Vyasasana. The palanquin just fit up there quite perfectly. Bhavananda, who had been caring for Prabhupada through Prabhupada's final pastimes and had been with them and, had been giving such a strong face and such a strong appearance. I remember when they put Prabhupada on the Vyasasana, Bhavananda went behind the Vyasasana, and he just collapsed and he started sobbing like a child. And the Gaudiya Mat devotees, they were leading kirtan. And when they sing Jaya Lila Premadana, I remember I personally collapsed. And the devotees, practically they couldn't sing because everyone was crying so much. And there was a succession of bhajans and kirtans, and everyone offered garlands and flower petals to Prabhupada. I remember people from the city, they were coming and they were offering. And then through the course of the night, the kirtans went on. And because I knew that I had to cook the next day, I sort of tuned out about midnight and I went and took rest for a couple hours. And I was told that in the middle of the night, they didn't know who to ask to lead bhajan. And I was told they turned to this little man that had been there the whole time, and I'd say the majority of the devotees, they didn't know who he was, and it was Srila Kinchana Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj. And I was told that they asked him, Prabhu, could you sing? And he picked up the mridanga and he started singing, and because his singing was so pure and it was so full of love for his friend Prabhupada and for Radha and Krishna, everyone collapsed again. And then we went for the Mangal Artik, and the Mangal Artik at Krishna Balaram Mandir that morning was led by Anand Prabhu, Prabhupada's godbrother. And then after the Mangal Artik, then they took Prabhupada for his last parikrama.
At first light after Mangalarti, the devotees took Prabhupada in a palanquin. I remember Narayan Maharaj was leading the kirtan, Nadi was playing drum, and I had kartals. We went all the way down to Vrindavan, and then of course then I noticed all these hundreds of people that came from nowhere. I couldn't figure that everyone had heard, or if they had heard that Prabhupada left. I never saw Vrindavan in such a mood that everyone came out to pay homage. It was so early in the morning. The rooftops were packed wherever we went. And then we took Prabhupada to all the Goswami temples of Vrindavan, Madan Mohan, Radha Damodar, Radha Shyamsundar. And we ended up at Govindaji. And from Govindaji, we came back from there.
As we went from one place to the other, people were performing arti, offering flowers, offering prasadam. Just, all of Vrindavan was displaying their love and affection for Srila Prabhupada. And then finally we brought him back, and then we prepared to put him in the samadhi. And the thing that amazed me is that Srila Prabhupada had left the night before, and now this was almost noon of the day after. So this has been a significant amount of time. And of course, for an ordinary man, within an hour or two, rigor mortis sets in, and the body gets stiff like a board. But Srila Prabhupada, his entire body remained not stiff at all. It was completely loose. Every joint, every part of his body was loose and completely flexible. There was no mottling, no settling of blood in the different areas of the body that happens to people, the ordinary persons who die. There was no odor. And we had undressed him again and prepared him to bring him down into the samadhi, and his body was still fragrant. Every symptom was that of a greatly advanced Mahabhagavat, completely pure, completely Brahman, completely spiritualized, who had achieved Mahasamadhi.
Kandakpakoti Kamaniya Vishesha Sobhang Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Chintamani.
He was carried on a chair, sat under the tamal tree for darshan of the deities. And we could all tell it wouldn't be long. This one day, Prabhupada had this magnificent garland on. And for a moment I looked at him and I thought, oh, I wish I had that garland. And immediately I felt so horrible. I felt, here's your spiritual master, and look at him, and you're wanting something from him? And I started crying. I was so ashamed. I went to the corner of the courtyard and I couldn't stop crying. At that moment, Vrindavaneshwari, my daughter, was 2. She went over to Prabhupada spontaneously, paid her obeisances. And as she was getting up, Prabhupada took the garland off and placed it on her. She ran over to me and immediately put it on me. I have that garland today. I've dried it. I've sewn cloth around it, and that garland is being used when we're in the company of different individuals who are leaving their body. They wear that garland. So Prabhupada's mercy is very far-reaching.
The Samadhi ceremony was going on. Narayana Maharaj was organizing. One or two of his assistants were there. Bharadraj was leading that kirtan. I was having the kartals. Nitai Chand was playing the mridanga. And a few hundred devotees were chanting. And then, of course, after Prabhupada was placed there, salt was surrounded underneath and on all sides to form an antiseptic cover for the transcendental body of Prabhupada. And then soil was thrown in. I was also fortunate to throw some soil on top. It is said in the CC during that Samadhi ceremony of Haridas Thakur that anyone who throws soil into the Samadhi of a pure devotee will be liberated, will go back to Godhead. So I was thinking, even here we're getting Prabhupada's mercy. Of course, there'd been an Abhishek of Prabhupada just prior to his entering the Samadhi, and then the Abhishek water came out, and I was fortunate to get about 1 liter of it, which I drank. I kept a small quantity in some small bottles. So I was able to throw soil into the Samadhi and at the same time drink the Charanamrita.
The hole which was dug for placing Prabhupada in Samadhi, the devotees had stayed up all night excavating that hole. There was a little roped off area, and we were all just pressed up against this rope watching. Of course, we didn't know what was going on, but we watched, and gradually Srila Prabhupada's transcendental Sri Vigraha became covered. And then it really started hitting me that this is the last time that I'm going to see Srila Prabhupada with my eyes. And then I just broke out weeping and weeping. And that was the completion. They poured the earth on top of the Samadhi, and I remember going back to my room, sitting down in front of one of the favorite pictures I kept of Srila Prabhupada, and I just did my own little Guru Puja for Srila Prabhupada. And then after that I just collapsed, took rest, and got up a couple hours later, and there was a whole ceremony going on of different speakers coming and glorifying Srila Prabhupada. And then after that there was a huge feast, and all the residents of Vrindavan came, and thousands of people were fed with prasadam in Prabhupada's honor.